Hi everyone, let's talk about websites. So let's talk about replacing the PlayBASIC domain. How are we going to do that? What are we going to leverage to make that happen? Well, I'm not really sure at the moment. I've been trying to fix some old website content managers that I've written in the past to work with modern versions of PHP because they were thrown together back then, so of course there's bugs with them. A few had showstoppers, but most sort of work. None of these are the latest builds. These are just versions that I have on my laptop. The finals were actually on the desktop. I couldn't be bothered dragging them across, and I'm not going to use the code bases as they stand anyway. But this is an update for a friend's music site years ago. This version has a bunch of PlayBASIC content in it, like text down the bottom here, etc. But you can. It's got a contact form, all the same basic stuff. It's got the same basic square bracket phrasing that I use all the time. I'm logged in as Jason here to demonstrate this. I'll show you why. Under the news articles here, what he wanted was to be able to add news items to the website. So you would come down to the bottom here, and just like any other thread, really, you could give it a title. This is a cool message or something. La 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 la. Hit submit. I've got a bit of debug information in this version, but our post is right there, ready to be seen by the world. The edit button's not hooked up, as far as I understand it, in this version, so you can't change the text once it's there, but you can delete it. It just gets removed. The way this one works is was a bug. There you go. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. You've got old code, and newer versions of PHP are much more unforgiving about any kind of ambiguity in some of the code. It's difficult when you look back at old code bases that you've forgotten how they work in the first place. It's like, why does it do this? And, anyway. To edit this stuff, I've been using a thing called Code Lite. Compared to the other highlighted IDE, this is much nicer. And it's simple, really simple. Hopefully you get some ideas about what I have in mind for PlayBASIC. In principle, just have a page where we've got our code and maybe some buttons over here or something, or down the side here to navigate around. The fragment we're looking at here this is actually one of the other content managers. That's the whole site, by the way. That's it. The die there is superfluous. It's the same as end in PB, for example. This is an older content manager. I had a version of this running for a while. You probably never noticed it. It was up for a little while, taken down up for a little while. I was just kind of messing around with ideas, Similar kind of principle. This one has the content manager and the theme are split apart. That's really frustrating in these content management sort of systems, as you end up with the theme has a lot of code in it, and I wanted less code in there so I could sort of go, say to designer friends, hey, here you go, make some pages out of this. And this one uses the same square bracket kind of stuff. So I'm testing, in here I've got an example of PlayBASIC code highlighted in it. Mega demos. It's much more cleaner, and that's to do with the styling of the sheet. Sorry, the style sheet, and I've used a template here from somewhere. I don't know where it comes from. Ideally, we would use Bootstrap. I'll show you a version of that in a minute. Let's try and log in. Don't save things. Okay, so we've actually logged into the site. On our articles page here, this version of the manager has a concept of different document types. You can sort of specify a document type, and then you give it a set of rules about how to be created, displayed, and edited or changed. And then from the theme, you can just kind of tell it to display this data type within a certain range. If we go to the admin section, which is bare bones, we've got no theming, no nothing in here, but we actually have an edit articles. And this kind of shows it like a record level edit. So if we went to, I don't know, Mega Demos, we get, you know, straight record, look at this particular content, much like you would in the forums, for example. You wouldn't see the stuff here, you would just see the stuff here would be invisible to you. You know, you're not changing that all the time, you're changing the body content. I think in here it lets you modify the username, which wouldn't be allowed, of course. You just hit down at the bottom, it shows you a previously rendered version of this section. The code here was just dragged. I just cut and pasted that from the forums. That's why I like to use the same square bracket markup stuff as the forum, so text and copy can be moved between the forums and our website. So we hit update record. That would save this. We don't have an append picture in this one. I think that was something I was trying to work out how I was going to implement those things. I've since had better ideas for those things. On something like PlayBASIC, our homepage as it stands now, there isn't an administration. There is an admin section. So I can edit I can add news to it, add source codes, add tutorials, add things to the gallery. You know, the thing about that site though is that all those pages are very similar, but they use different slabs of code for the administration part, and the display code's almost the same for all of it. And that's why I wanted to have, in whatever the successor is going to be, a system that lets us define a type of record that we need as a structure, pretty much. Imagine like a type, you know, in PB, and these would be fields within the types. So we've got like an ID, a status, a visible, a title. You can imagine that stuff. You know. Here, I think this is just called article. So we have like type, article, and then we have a field for ID, status, visible, author. Back to edit articles. So anyway, you could go through the articles and do your thing. Oh, that's right. Go back to articles up here. I think at the bottom of this page is that thing shown? No. There was issues with things like the syntax highlighter. We don't actually have a style. Normally you'd have like on the forums when there's a piece of code. So we've got this style element here. On this other site, we don't have that. So it doesn't actually, it just is a bit of HTML dropped into this stream. It's all of this stuff here. You wouldn't normally want that, I wouldn't have thought. These aren't hooked up, these comments, but ideally you could have a comments attached to article threads, so you could actually have, you know, any kind. It's like a blog emulation, really. I remember getting further along with that, but I don't know how much further that is than here. because my goal was to use the same basic back end of the content manager with different themes, and the themes are really just they're plug-in tags that are custom for each particular site. I think most of that stuff is not really hooked up, but this had had a bunch of errors in it, but I've got the same template over here. If we have a look at one of the articles in this document, so we've got like a basic header structure and then just a raw text. That's what we've got, and it understands these tags, but it doesn't actually display them correctly. Actually, I'll go back to my admin. Sorry. Look at the dark basic. There's no style in this template in HTML to pre-format that. You'd have to go, whack pre-tags around it. I think that should fix that. I think. Don't. So like, yeah, there you go. So normally what you'd have is that where are we here? Where are we going? This tag here would use a particular style sheet or a div really. It's a pre-formatted section. I remember there's some other stuff that was attached, like in the PlayBASIC homepage, each different section of the website, when you upload a picture, that picture goes into a different temporary area, pretty much, which is a problem because it means you can't share a picture across the website unless you grab the actual raw address of that photo, and that's not great. It'd be better if we had like an asset control. So you have a post, and then the post has assets that you've added to it. So if you want to add a file to something, this can be stored in a localized location somewhere, but with an ID, an asset ID. And when you go to link to the asset, it works out what this thing is. Can I display it? Should I display it, or should I just, which would be much more beneficial, I think. That's the theory now, anyway. I'm not quite sure. So this is all running in the browser. It's all just PHP code. We need better theming, better HTML, but the principle works fairly well. This one's running. This is not the final version of it. It's just things like the quote pages and stuff. This uses a similar idea I was talking about before, is that we have, for each of these forms, these entry forms, we can have, we can define what the form is going to be and what things we're collecting within a certain range of these things. Is it text? Is it a number? Is it a long piece of text? Is it a picture? But who knows what's going to be. And then it has a display set of properties as well, so you can have controls against things. So it limits what you can upload or what you can send, and that works inside the browser and inside the server on the other end. So there's two levels of provision there when you're editing something. And this sort of half generates the code and half generates the other one. It probably should have a bunch of simple functions in JavaScript and then it should physically make the code do what it's meant to do. We've got some styling issues there where the location of the add second button's not on the right spot, and they're on the wrong spot. you know, you pick a suburb, etc., and do your thing there, and choose a time and describe your job a bit, you know. Yeah, it's fairly elaborate. You've got a standard sort of, this is me, blah blah blah. You've got a limited number of characters, etc. If I go to hit, send me a quote, things, gives me an error about how you need to. And that's in the browser. It's not doing that. It's not hitting the server to do that. If I just spoofed this and set this through as posted the data to the server, it asked me the same thing. On the other end, it's all of those things are validated. If they fail, you just get an error message back. Oh well, and, things like the FAQ sections here work pretty well. I think we just need them to be clean, and then have pictures where we need them to be, extra, that kind of stuff. All right, so we're looking at the PlayBASIC website. This is, I don't know when this was made now, 2007, 2008, something like that. It was only really made to split away from the Underwear Design website because it was just getting too much data to have as a sub page under that, So I think we'll replace all the front end. We'll have sort of a carousel, which is a kind of a standard design now. Most of the pages here, we could get phrasing into a new set of templates pretty easily, I would have thought. This is what I'm talking about, our data type stuff before. We've got under the news section, when we view the news here, it's just pulling out records from that database and just spitting them out back to you, and giving us basic highlighting control. So we've got obviously we've got a YouTube video stuck in there, but our formatting here is kind of clunky. It doesn't respect end of lines, those kind of things, where it should do that automatically for us. It just doesn't. I'm not quite sure why it didn't do that. And this doesn't have any style. Well, I think it does. Actually, no, it doesn't. Yeah, that's right. I think they're done with just some JavaScript, the hovering stuff. I can't remember now. I mean, a good example there is, this is one of the pictures of Steve's ray tracer the other day, or a few weeks ago now. To add this to a post is really awkward. You've got to upload the thing somewhere and then reference it directly. It's not as neat as what it should be. And if you want to have members on the website and have a members area of the website where people can come and download the latest version with a nice clean, once you were logged in, you would go to the download area, and you would see like a members section that would not be there normally, where you could pick what version you want to download again. I don't think we'll keep every single version available all the time, just in case someone needs compatibility with a really old demo. But even then, you probably should just use, if you're dependent upon your code running in, I don't know, PB 1.2 or something like that, 1.20 or something, which is a lot more liberal than some of the more modern versions. It didn't have as many errors, like runtime errors that it wouldn't stop if they occurred. You should just update your code generally. But anyway, so for things like content that is only for each user, there would be a sign up area up here, of course, and when you were not logged in, you wouldn't be able to see those aspects. When you did log in and through your ordering here, even the order page would probably not be available unless you signed up to the website. That'll be a major difference that we'll have. And your account, you know, maybe we'll have like messaging between people. And I've got a few ideas that I like a lot, but that don't really fit in this kind of idea at the moment. They're kind of more grand scheme of things. So we've got syntax highlighting on this particular example, but we don't have a style sheet, or we don't have a div area to lock this into a little scrollable area. So it's kind of clunky. I think in different pages that it works differently as well. That's what I mean about the code bases for this old websites. You know, it works, but it has too much custom stuff in it, and yeah, like so that's the source code. Sorry, it's tutorials. Is it? Source code is just a straight another database with similar properties in it. I do love this demo. I couldn't help myself. Once I started thinking about that looked like 2001 Space Odyssey, I just thought, wow, yeah, we'll go there and make some dumb voices. It'll be fun. Why not, you know? Because, I mean, look at this page now. You can see that there are errors with this. The download section to add, for me to upload content under the website is quite clunky. So that needs to be solved. We've kind of a better solution for doing it, and you know, if under tutorials we really need to have each tutorial be its own page, and then we can have more elaborate pictures that go with it, maybe separate videos, etc. Maybe sub pages as well, and of course put the help files up here somewhere. So you know, so you could just browse the help files online when you're away from and install the PB. I think that's one thing we'll change as well, is we won't have, if you download the PB at the moment, it'll give you a version that's has an installer. I think we should just give people two options. We could give people a zip version or an installer version. We might have to update the PB a bit to make sure it understands, make sure all the default paths are set from a zip version. And what that would do for people is you wouldn't have to install it, so you could just copy it to your USB or whatever and take it with you to work or your friend's place or whatever, without having to drag your computer around with you all the time. It's just more convenient. A lot of tools come like that now. At the moment, I'm just trying to get this old stuff working and just check what I can salvage from it, how much I'll salvage from it. I don't know. Do I want to keep any of it? I'm not that enamored with a lot of it, but yeah, it'll be interesting. With this asbestos one up here, this is built in a weird way. Alright, so this asbestos side in particular is built with a combination of statically built elements and then dynamically built elements. So it's a combination of our square bracket markup. So our system here is resolving where this image is. That's why it's nice to do this sort of stuff. You have a picture, it goes, okay, the picture's going to be the asset folder, wherever the asset folder is. Let it work at this thing out and not you do it. And that means that you can have, you know, the locations of files can change, all that kind of good stuff. You don't have to go back through and look at that stuff. Look at a simple page. What's demolition? So these pages have, like, this is the HTML page. We've got a title of the thing, metadata, the page body, and that's it. I've just got pushes down the bottom. Should be a div there, but that's the page body, and everything else is phrased into it. So, well, things like your carousel, that kind of stuff, that's what we'll end up having. You know, a very simple front page. And the header is the most important aspect of it. Getting a logo sort of organised, having some subsections here, and then this is just got stock text in it everywhere. Right, so this is the index page. What HTML have we got? It's not too bad. So we've got a tag for our Jumbotron. We've got a page first. Another page is there with an image offset, headlines, any subsection text we wanted to have. That's inserting those things into there. Obviously under Bootstrap, code is actually styled up in a particular way. Yeah, I've got a primary button equals this. In other words, there's a tag called primary button. It's working like a URL, but you can have a button on these pages. This thing here, that would make. Anyway, what we're heading towards, we'll be using Bootstrap, some version of Bootstrap, and then we'll hopefully get someone who's good at styling to customize the styling up for us a bit and make it look not as cut and pasty, which is what it's going to look like initially. Can't help it. It's not my thing. I don't really give a crap about a lot of that stuff. But I do care about the functionality of these things, and I don't want to jump in and try and build the world's best website. I just want to have something that has simple elements to it, so we can have members, have content that's available to people who are only members of the website, and then start building that up from there. Like, it'd be great if people could share their code through the main site and get feedback through there and do all that kind of stuff, have messages between people. But, you know, I mean, you're opening yourself up you're opening up a whole can of worms to that stuff sometimes. That's enough of this conversation for the time being. Thanks for watching, and it's pretty old, isn't it? It's a pretty cool picture. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll keep you updated. Bye.